What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Navs Effect podcast. I'm your host, Naveen Ganglani. First of all, a major thank you to those who checked out our recent episodes on the podcast. Last Friday, of course, we had Kiefer Ravenna. Part of that episode with him was his response to the Dean Kenito Henson, who we had last week. And the person you hear laughing in the background is our guest for today. We'll be introducing him shortly. He's been in the podcast before. And then a few days ago, Monday, we went with our film review episode. We did a review episode on Conjuring the Last Rites. Ray De La Cruz of Rayview PH was there for us in that episode. Now, today, we're kicking off the UAAP Season 88 men's basketball preview series on the Navs Effect podcast. We're going to do over-unders. We're going to take a look at the win total of each team from UAAP Season 87, all 8 teams. And we're going to answer the simple question of over, under, or push? Do we think they will exceed their win total from last season? Do we think they will underperform compared to what they did last season? Or do we feel that they're going to be pretty much the same in terms of the elimination round? And we're also going to provide our win totals for each team. And it has to result to 56 because 56 is the combined number of wins for each team each UAP season in the eliminations. So a lot of fun, obviously. Many of you who follow me on this podcast are college basketball aficionados. And speaking of college basketball aficionados, our guest today is exactly that. Maui up of the Boleros podcast. If you're a college basketball fan, you've seen their podcast, or maybe you've seen Maui in this podcast before. He'll be joining me to have this discussion. So can't wait to get started. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay, we're now joined by Maui. Maui and his Boleros crew have been quite productive and busy during the off season, churning out that content. It's very hard sometimes to be a UAP or college basketball dedicated podcast when you're in the Philippines. I get that there's the off season leagues, but the main draw and main attention is really there when we get to the actual college basketball seasons at the end of the year. But these guys have been just churning out content. They've been making episodes based on player transfers, some off-season happenings in terms of the games, and really just looking forward to this time of the year when we can all come together and bond over something we all love. So Maui, you guys have done such a good job. I'm sure you're pretty excited for season 88 at this point.
Yeah, thanks for those kind words, intro Manavs. And yeah, we're pretty excited at Boleros. You hit it on the nail. The problem with college basketball, especially the UAAP here in the Philippines, is yung main draw is only 2 to 3 months of the year. I'm not sure of the schedule this year because we'll be having the SEA Games also this coming season, and I think it could coincide with the UAAP season. So maybe they end early and we get a shorter season, or maybe they take a break and we get a longer season but with the break at the middle. But yeah, we're pretty excited. We've waited for this. I think all of the fans, including us, we're actually a fan-based podcast, Boleros, and we've waited for this since the end of last season, which is around December last year, and it's been a long 9 months. The off season has not been as exciting as maybe in previous seasons. We haven't seen a lot of nav bombs like before, but still, I would say that pretty exciting, pretty exciting coming to the season. I think that this episode could be a good preview of that. The reason why I think this season could be more exciting than maybe the previous season.
I'm not sure if this last offseason wasn't as eventful. I mean, I get what you mean because 2 seasons ago, the big move was Francis Lopez, diba? Going from Ateneo to UP, the night of the bonfire. And I know all about it because I was the one who broke that news. So it was quite crazy. Then the year after, it was QMB to UP, and then that same day, Mason to LaSalle. I think for this year, we could say that the biggest offseason was probably VJ Pret to UP. What do you think?
Definitely. Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. That move was the biggest move of this off season. Getting the rookie of the year and somebody who's being considered as part of the SEA Games lineup this early in his UAAP career speaks volumes on how of the ceiling and the current talent that a player like VJ Pre has. And UP fans should be excited for his first impending debut a season from now. I'm excited to see how he does in a winning team. Si Rimogat is somebody that I will be looking out for this season. Maybe VJ can look at the performance of Rimogat and try to learn from them also, coming from a team that did not make the Final Four and is now expected to bring a championship to the school that he's representing.
So this off season, I feel like there weren't more like headliners. Kasi probably after VJ, the second biggest move was Francis Lopez leaving UP early. And then next to that would probably be Gagate. So parang there weren't like as many big, bold moves. But I felt like there were more moves in terms of volume. Kasi a lot of the UAAP guys transferred to the NCAA also, di ba? Like
Yeah.
Torculas, and then the other way around naman, Payusing. It was very eventful, but that was good then because we had a lot of content to make out of it. And every year there's always going to
Definitely.
be a few moves. But anyway, we're not here to recap the off season as much as we are to look forward and preview the upcoming season. So, like I said, over unders, and we'll get right to it. The number one seed last year was the De La Salle University Green Archers, 12-2. Their two losses, first game against UE, in a game where UE had one of the greatest three-point shooting performances I had ever seen in the UAAP. And ironically, a game that Kevin Kimba would miss some late free throws that cost him the game. Foreshadowing for DLSU's fate, ironically, for the rest of the season. And then they had that loss to NU when they had already clinched the number one seed, although they did play their main guys, and NU did play very impressively and won that game. So 12-2. LaSalle, to many people, based on conversations I've had and online reactions I've seen, many have them as the number one seed again. Maybe the most talented team entering the UAP season, at least from a general consensus perspective. I don't think myself personally they're head and shoulders above anyone else yet. I do think they're the deepest team in the UAAP, which annoyed a lot of UP fans when I first came out with that episode. But I think depth-wise, LaSalle 1 to 16 has the most talent right now. I do have them going under, though, but not by a lot. Instead of 12 wins, I think they win 11 this season. I have them, and by the way, these are all hypotheticals, guys. When we talk on podcasts, that doesn't mean it's the word of the law. It doesn't mean it's going to happen for sure. It's just predictions. We're trying to, like many of you, visualize or see what's going to happen. So I have LaSalle going 11-3. I think they lose one time to UP. I have them potentially getting upset by a lower seed team. And I have them losing at least one game to the trio of UST, NU, or Ateneo. Probably NU, because NU seems to match up well with them the last few years. So maybe them. But I still have them as the number one seed at 11-3. And like I said, I think they're the deepest team. What's your estimate for LaSalle?
Yeah, actually, I had them the same way as you, 11-3. And one of the reasons is also, I think that maybe they split the season series with UP and lose one game and then potentially lose to an Ateneo or UST and NU. And we know the top teams in the UAAP usually throw a game or two during the season. It happens. Some games they take lightly, they go down big and they can't dig themselves out of the hole. For one team like the UE Red Warriors last year got pretty hot against Lasal. So yeah, I pegged them at an under, at an 11-3. I don't know if I could successfully predict much like you yung where they lose, but I think that this season is more competitive than the previous one. I think that season 88 will be a bigger will the top teams, specifically UP and LaSalle, will face more competition. I think the gap is smaller in terms of like talent level and championship chances for both teams. Although I still value them as definitely a cut above the rest, and potentially the top two seeds for next season. Yeah.
So I would say that this season, UAP season 88, has more parity than last season. Season 86, I think under the radar had good parity because UP was good, LaSalle was good, Ateneo was good, NU was good. But when you went to the lower rank of the standings that season, it wasn't anything special, diba? And last year, entering 87, it felt like it was going to be LaSalle or UP, and then there's everyone else, and that turned out to be the true. LaSalle vanquished Adamson in the Final Four easily. UP beat UST right away, and then these two teams had five very entertaining games, and it really season 87 to me was who was going to win between LaSalle and UP, and we needed the final minute of game three of the finals to determine that answer. Now, this question, this season, don't get me wrong, I still think LaSalle and UP are the favorites to go back to the finals, but in terms of catching them, I don't think Ateneo, NU, and UST are that far behind. What do I mean by that? I'm not saying that these three teams are going to upset, although I feel like one of them, I'll talk about them later, has the chance to elevate itself to the no, all three of them have the chance, but one team from those three in particular, I feel, has a chance to catch at LaSalle UP tier. But I do feel it's more balanced this season. Even Adamson and FEU, maybe they give these top teams a run for their money in some games because they're not going to be easy to beat. But really, we're looking at the top five: LaSalle, UP, Ateneo, NU, UST. I think these five are going to be very competitive with each other, and we'll be talking about them more shortly. I do have one interesting question for LaSalle. Not a burning question, an interesting question, Maui, while we're at the LaSalle topic. This is the first season since they've been handled by Coach Topex that they're not going to have Kevin Kiambao on the roster, right? Now, am I saying that LaSalle will be, what's the term for it? They're gonna come out as a too reliant on KQ team the last few seasons? Is that what the season is gonna show us? I don't think so, because they do have Bakla and Cortez. They're still pretty deep, like I said. But what kind of offense are they gonna run? Who's gonna get the ball in late game crunch time situations? Is it Maclaan? Is it Cortez? Is it both? Is it by committee? Is it gonna be Phillips? Can Phillips take his game to another level? Because I feel like they're relying on him more this season than they were last season. KQ had so much gravity to his game and so much skill. He was a once in a generation type of talent, two-time local MVP. So how do they proceed moving forward in these tight situations without him? And what kind of coaching are we going to see from Coach Topex? Because sometimes when you're a coach, when you have a star player, it's easy for the star player to find the solutions to many of the problems. How good of a coach Topex Robinson is, we're going to find out this season. And I'm very interested to see that. It's not like I'm leaning one way or the other. I'm really just curious to see how he approaches the season without having that all-around answer in Kimbao.
Yeah, I think it will be by committee, by Baclaan and Cortez. I talked about them on our podcast, and I think that the success of LaSalle will really depend on the two being able to balance when to score and when to facilitate. I think LaSalle, as you mentioned, has enough firepower to replace what they lost when Kevin Kiambao decided to go pro. It's pretty wild to even imagine what if he stayed for one more season, because they have so many mouths to feed at the current moment. And
If KQ was in the team, I think they'd go undefeated.
well, actually, I was about to say kanina that the previous season they could have easily swept. 'Di ba? Kasi they should have won both of those games against UE and NU. Both of that games were winnable. And both of that games were from lower seeded teams. Although NU was really on a different type of hot streak during the end of the first round, so you'd understand why UE was able to do that upset. But when you talk about the LaSalle team this year, I think they're more dangerous when you have more players scoring 8 to 10 points a game. When Mike Phillips doesn't have to have a 2020 game, when Baclaan or Cortez don't have to score 25 points, I think that's when they are most dangerous. When guys like Dungo, when guys like Makalalag, Guliena, all of these guys, Abadam, when they're clicking, I think Lasal is unstoppable. They're harder to stop. I think that we will, as you mentioned, we will see a different dimension of LaSalle offense this year. It's not like they have that offensive hub as you mentioned, like Kevin Kiambao. But I'm not concerned at all because we've seen it through history. Coach Topex has been able to handle to handle a team that has two primary scoring and facilitating guards during his time in the NCAA with the Marcelino Twins. I think that Coach Topex is has all the has a bag to show out for this season. I think I've been saying this the whole off season. Despite them losing Phil Oil, I still think that the title is for LaSalle to lose, not even UP, the defending champions. And we'll discuss it after when we go into detail what we think about UP for this coming season.
Yeah, you're right about the other key role players stepping up and how that makes LaSalle so much harder to beat. We didn't even mention yet Amos and Pablo, who are gonna be the four guys. And it's crazy to think that they are, once upon a time they were blue chip recruits, right? But in the pecking order, there's Phillips, there's Cortez slash Baklaan 2 and 3, and then they're like the fourth or fifth men, and then Makalalag, Abadam, sometimes they step up more. So that's why they're so deep. Goliena, we haven't mentioned Marasigan yet. Also, he's starting to come
Yeah,
along. Those three main guys are going to be very not effective but explosive, especially for certain games. And Phillips is a two-way threat. So how can Amos and Pablo contribute as the fourth or fifth man when they don't have the ball all the time? Can they still find other ways to contribute in those roles? Likewise for the likes of Makalalag, Marasigan, and company. Because if they find ways, and this is why I said Coach Topex's role here is going to be very critical. If they find ways to contribute despite not having the ball, then it just makes their team so much harder to beat. Okay, let's go now to UP. Last year, the UP Fighting Maroons had 11 wins, 3 losses. They lost to LaSalle twice in the elimination round. And then they lost to NU as well at UST. UP opens their season against UST at UST, but the Tigers will be without Fortsky Pantagal. Last season, the Fighting Maroons won the UAAP championship. They have made the UAAP finals every year since the UAP returned after the pandemic. Every season, rather. That's 85, 84, 86, 87. They also made the finals in 2018. So 5 out of the last 6 UAP finals, the UP Fighting Maroons have been there. And in the last 4 seasons, they have made it to game 3 of the finals each time. The literal last game of the season, UP was there dictating whether or not they would be champions or not. So far, they went 2-2 in the last 4 seasons. Now, this season, obviously, they have some changes. JD Kagulangan is no longer there. Quentin Milora Brown is no longer there. Seven Gagate has left for LaSalle, although he didn't play for the team last season. He wasn't lined up due to injury, which means more responsibility on the NU Bullpups / vets, Alarcon, Abadjano, Fortea, Felicilda. You need other guys to step up if UP want to be successful, such as Gianni Stevens, who's shown good flashes in the preseason. Jacob Baila, who displayed how he can contribute despite being just a role player last season, particularly with his finals against Kimbao in Game 1. And, of course, Ray Remogat, the UAAP MVP runner-up from season 86, is now joining the Fighting Maroons this season. I am going for a push. I think UP wins 11 games again. Like I said, I have them splitting the elimination round with DLSU. And I see them potentially losing 2 more games to the other Final Four contenders that we talked about. I think ultimately they will have 11 games, same as LaSalle, and then the quotient will determine who will be the number 1 seed. What do you think of UP Maui?
Uh, my ano is to go under, but not by much, just a game. I think that UP has a lot more questions to answer than maybe in previous seasons of Coach Goldwyn, 'di ba? It's crazy to think that they lost Lopez, Kagulangan, and QMB, and yet we still think that they are a cut above the rest. That's how good this lineup is. That's how good their recruitment has been in off seasons. And I'm a bit skeptical right now just because I haven't seen Sinimogat be consistently good. I think this off season, I don't know if that will translate. But I do know that they have options. UP still has a very deep lineup. If you look at yung team nila, much like Asal, every one of the 16 can have a big game, can contribute to a win. I love how si Gani Stevens has been playing this off-season, and I think that he could break out this season and showcase the talent that they wanted to see when they recruited him from UE. But I think that they lose. They lose an additional game this season just because I want to peg them a bit lower than the previous seasons. That's how much yung value lang talaga that you're losing when you're losing a Kagulangan, when you're losing a Lopez and a QMB. What I think that they've lost so much is yung stability ni Kagulangan on offense and yung stability ni QMB on defense. And I think because of that, maybe they would have some problems closing out some games. And particularly the four losses, I'd say one, as we said, they'll split the series with LaSalle. So that's one loss. And then maybe they drop a game or two against maybe one against UST. Maybe one against NU. NU was able to beat them also during the previous season without an FSA. And then I think Ateneo could potentially upset them. So maybe one each from those four teams. But I don't think it's gonna be easy as previous seasons for UP when it came to the elimination round. The reason why players from UP have also had a hard time to get to the mythical team is because they have such a deep lineup, and some games they just blow out of the water. And I think this season we will see more close games, more excitement. I'm sure the UP crowd is also craving for more heartbreaking. No, not heartbreaking, heart gut wrenching types of games. This is the team that was pegged as the comeback kids, 'di ba, in previous seasons, and I think it's gonna be a more exciting season. And much like Lasal, the title is theirs to lose. UP should go all in also this season because the NU guys are gonna graduate, and it's pretty hard to become back-to-back champions, 'di ba, in the UAAP. We haven't seen a lot of teams do it ever since I've started watching. The teams that have generally back to back are teams that are dynasty teams that win more than two in a row because of the continuity of the lineup. And it's gonna be interesting to see if UP can pull this out and win and become back to back champions. It's a different type of achievement, another achievement of the Goldwyn Monteverde era if they do. But as I've mentioned, I think that in terms of the regular season, I think that they probably win 10 games.
So with UP this season, for the first time since before the pandemic, they don't have that, like we were talking about with Kimbao, everything, solve all the issues guy when things break down. Because when you look at the lineup since 84, you've had Carl Tamayo there, you've had JD Kagulangan there. Last year you had QMB. Francis Lopez, I think, is also a bigger loss than people are giving credit for. And then you even had a Xavier Lucero, a Richie Rivero, a CJ Cancino. So these were guys who were like, okay, if things aren't going well, we need someone to kind of give us a spark. They would find ways to get these guys the ball. Because as much as UP has always been a deep team relying on the collective in terms of how to attack, they've always also had that safety net. So can Alarcon be the safety net this season? Can it be Remogat? The preseason, there were moments that they stepped up to the role, but there were also moments, I think, fair to say, that they didn't exactly step up to that role, right? Particularly when Ray struggled in those two games against DLSU. So who's gonna be that person for them? I had an episode with Simon Redoblado a few weeks ago. We talked about, does UP have a closer by committee method? Now, there are still times they can be so dominant on both sides of the floor that they run away with victories, particularly in the finals against NU when they stepped on the gas pedal early in the first half and never relinquished it. Which also reminded me once again that if you want to beat the UP Fighting Maroons, you have to play them in a half court game. You have to make UP a half court team. Because if you allow UP to force turnovers, get out long rebounds, and then get out on the break and get easy scoring opportunities, they can just put all these points up so quickly in such a short amount of time that your margin for error becomes very, very slim. But if you make them play a slower type of game, half court pace, offensive sets, more like a chess match, I'm not saying that they're not going to beat you. More often times than not, they're probably still going to win. But at least your margin for error isn't as slim. So that's one area I'm looking forward to this season. More of a basketball breakdown kind of point, but how often can teams force UP to be more of a half court team rather than a running team? Nevertheless, I still have them winning 11 games, the most, tied with LaSalle, and they'll probably be back in the finals again.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think you touch on them losing Lopez, and I think it's the loss of Lopez hit harder, or is gonna hit harder for UP, just because I think si Torculas, they did not expect this to happen, diba?
Yes.
If Torculas was there, they'd probably be a lot better. I think that's one of their biggest questions heading into the season. Who will play that four slot? Belmonte has certainly not been as consistent as they should. They've wanted to, so they've had to run different types of lineups, and some of them have been successful, some of them haven't, and it's not that consistent as they were in previous seasons. And a player like Remogat, who can give you 20, is not the same as Kagulangan, who will be more consistent. Speaking of closing, a player being a closer for UP, actually the one that I've seen that's been the most consistent probably this offseason is Scary Jerry Abadiano. And I don't know if he's the right guy to become your closer, but he's certainly been the most consistent player on both ends of the floor. And I think UP will have a lot of questions to answer coming season 88, and maybe they lose a few more games in the first round and figure things out in the second round. And most definitely they are the favorites, much like Asal, to get them back to the finals.
One of Bela, Briones, or Iniguez, I feel like has to step up and be a consistent producer. They need more scoring in that wing. All right. Next team, the UST Growling Tigers. Last season, UST went 7-7. They made the return to the Final Four for the first time since 2019. Nick Cabanero and Fortsky Padragawa are in their final playing seasons. They recruited the best FSA in the high school game in Colin Sakoe to take over that spot for them this season, replacing Motong Kara. UST also has some good depth and good size with the likes of Jello Crisostomo, Koji Buenaflor, Ice Danteng providing shooting from the corners, Kyle Paranada off the bench, Mark Lemet, who I thought had some really good moments in the preseason as well. I think UST if you went to me and said, in terms of talent and size, UST has as much as all the other teams in the UAAP, I wouldn't agree, but I wouldn't tell you you're completely wrong either. I'd say that, if these different talents start to rise up, then yes, that could be the case because they have a lot of talent and size, positional size. Buenaflor and Crisostomo would have been centers back in the day. But here they are training as wing players who can shoot. So the tools are there. But for some reason, particularly in the preseason, it felt like not all of the parts were clicking. When you have someone like Cabanero, Crisostomo, Padrigao, Paranada, Buenaflor, who led the USC Tiger Cubs to a championship in the high school rank, and then Akowe. Now, maybe because all these pieces came together late and they need more time to mesh, but it feels like it should have fit better and it should have looked better. But many times it did not. UST to me feels like a team that's still seeking its identity. Who are they as a squad? Where are their strengths? Are they a we live and die by Forsky kind of team? Because Forsky is a great passer, but his shooting has been hit or miss a ton since last season. Are they gonna lean on Cabanero? Are they gonna be a free flowing, everyone eats kind of team where you take advantage of the total depth? Are they gonna be defensively oriented? Are they gonna play through a Kowe in the post? I agree to some degree that UST has as much talent as LaSalle and UP, like I said earlier. However, I think compared to LaSalle and UP, UST hasn't quite found its identity yet. And with all that said, I do have them going over their total from last season. I have them winning 8 games this season. How about you?
Yeah, actually, I was debating to put them as a push or to win more games, and I've decided that I'll put them at 7-7 for next season. If Motong Kara stayed, they could. I would easily say that they were championship contenders for this season. I think that they lost their ceiling when si Tongkara left. And it's nothing against Akowe or Peter Osang. He just fit in. Yung fit lang talaga ni Tongkara was pretty good in the UST system of Coach Pido. Having a wing as a big is I think the dream of Coach Pido Horencio. And I'm curious to see how si Akowe fits in with UST. Right now, we've said this on our podcast. We don't think that he's the best fit with how they want to play. They play fast. They shoot a lot of threes. Is that and the Kowa is the type of back to the basket half court big that thrives in a slow paced basketball game. But maybe he catches his breath, maybe he slims down more coming into the season. That's why we think si Peter Osang also deserved some consideration just because he was the better fit. But I believe that si Akowe still provides a bigger ceiling. He's a legitimate rookie from the juniors. He was an MVP in the juniors, and we've seen him play against college competition and still dominate. I think UST will have to do a better job of maybe tailoring yung game nila with Colin Sakowe, and I think it's also one of the reasons why they've been inconsistent this season, this off season because they've been looking for their identity. And so far, I think what's most concerning to me is how they play defense and how they haven't been able to limit teams. When teams like NU are not known to score a ton, scores 80 to 90 points on you, I mean, that maybe says something about your defense. And it's gonna be pretty hard to become to dethrone a LaSalle or a UP if you're just looking to outscore them. And let's see. They still have, I think, the best backcourt in the UAAP with Fortsky and Cabanero. One could argue that maybe LaSalle has could have the best backcourt, but I think these two can also have that title and have the versatility. It's gonna be interesting to see if Fortsky can be more efficient during his last season sa UST. I think that's gonna be very important. And I think si Kfortsky will really set the tone on how to also maximize yung offensive talent ni Collins Akowe. We know that Fortsky is very good in pick and roll. And we know how Fortsky has gotten his big men and FSAs involved. I think si Ange Kwame had his best season when Fortsky Padrigal was the point guard of Ateneo during that 85 championship of Ateneo. And but I just don't see yung ano nila, them increasing from last season after losing Tongkara. Despite Crisostomo, I think potentially becoming a star, despite Mark Lemet looking like a different type of player. I think with the increased competition also in the UAAP with the likes of NU, with the likes of Ateneo also looking to improve on the previous season, I think that they pushed at around 7 wins for this coming season.
The thing about UST is they're one of those teams that when things are going good, they look absolutely awesome. You know, the shots are falling in, they're
Agree.
running, they're trash talking, they're hyping each other up. And then when things aren't going so good and the other squad is outplaying them, they look lost and confused a lot of times what to do. And sometimes hahabol sila, they'll make it competitive. But we know that in the college basketball scene, you need to be able to play from behind sometimes. You need to be able to rally from behind. I mean, one of the reasons UP has made it to finals after finals after finals the last few years is because even if you build the lead against them, they find ways to get the score to a closer margin in a short amount of time. LaSalle, not as good as UP in terms of doing that the last few seasons, but because they had so much talent and they're going to have so much talent again, they've been able to rally. Can UST do that? Can UST be the team that we're saying they were down 14 at one point in the third quarter, but they were able to bounce back? Because there will be times that other teams will outplay them for certain stretches and they'll find themselves in the other end of a disadvantage rather. So can they play from behind? I want to see them answer that question because that Phil Oil game against NU was a bad look. And I'm still remembering that. They were leading NU big in the first half. Bulldogs answered with their own rally in the third quarter, and the Growling Tigers kind of folded after that. So we'll see if UST can work on that aspect of their game. Next, the Adamson Soaring Falcons made the Final Four last year at 6-8. This season, they have Cedric Manzano still in the team. No Joshua Hierro anymore. No Royce Mantua, now in the PBA as well. Matt Erlon is expected to take a leap. Earl Medina, their standout from the high school program. This season, compared to last, Adamson was able to keep their graduating seniors, which is a big win for that program. Can AJ Franzman take another leap? I have Adamson as an under this season. I have them winning 5 games instead of 6 last season. And that's not to say that I think Adamson has taken a step back. I just think the rest of the league has taken a step up, particularly NU this year with their FSA back and Ateneo being legitimate again. So because of that, I have Adamson with 5 wins. How about you?
I pegged Adamson as for me yung my projection was they push or they go over, and I think that they go over. They end the season at 7-7. I've liked how they've been able to get some of the titles during the preseason. Si
Wait,
Medina
sorry,
looks like
just because I'm writing it down, what did you have for UST? Over or under?
uh push at 7 wins.
Push 7. So you have DLSU 11, UP 10, UST 7, Adamson 7.
Yes.
Okay, go on.
Yes, and I think that Adamson will in previous seasons Adamson did not have a ceiling. They were at a very steady team led by veterans, but I think this season with sila Tumaneng, Medina, all of these young guns, I think that they have another gear. It's a bit concerning lang that they lost si Competente, who was also a key guy during the off season. But I've also liked si Ron Zone, how he's been able to carve out a role as a 3 and D. And I think Adamson has more pieces to be able to compete this season. But as you mentioned, I cannot expect them to win maybe more than 7 games. Initially 6 to 7 games ang projection ko, and it's really because a lot of teams have loaded up, as you mentioned. A lot of teams from the bottom are going to go back swinging, much like Ateneo and NU, who are getting FSAs. Ateneo had an FSA last season, but you know what the story of what happened last season. So I think that's gonna be very important. I think that Adamson is still led by one of the best coaches in the UAAP. Coach Nas has always managed to surprise us season after season. When people have been saying that they will be cellar dwellers, they've still been able to push and fight for a playoff spot. And my projection is that they would, with UST, fight for another playoff spot maybe this season. Let's see what happens. We've been dubbing them as the Chicago Bulls of the UAAP just because they've been in the play-in playoffs in the UAAP for so many times the past 5 or 6 seasons.
The Adamson Falcons as the Chicago Bulls of the UAAP. I like that. For a second, I thought you were gonna say '90s Bulls, but then I guess you made it. You meant the Kobe White, Josh Giddey Bulls.
Yeah.
I have so much respect for Coach Nash and his basketball acumen. I still think what he did with those Tolomia, Belo, Pogoy, FEU squads are so underrated. I felt like he put Pogoy in the current course or in the course to get to where Pogoy is now, which is a bona fide PBA star. And he's done a good job with this Adamson team. Overall, if the other teams are healthy, I just think they're deeper, but I feel like Adamson will give them quite the fight. Okay, this was probably the second easiest one for me. The UE Red Warriors last season went six. Ba't ka tumatawa? The UE Red Warriors last season went 6-8. Now, before I say what I'm gonna say, I just want to make sure this is pointed out. I like that Coach Chris Gavina is trying to change the culture at UE. I He's a friend of mine. John Nabate is a friend of mine, and I wish him all the best in his career. And I think he's gonna be a really good PBA player one day. I think Precious Momoway, even if he's not a perfect player, is probably the most explosive player in the UE team in terms of what he can do on both ends of the floor. And they have some nice young pieces. You know, they got Dre Coyle from Canada. He's impressive in the preseason. I believe Hunter Cruz Dumont, by the way, is no longer with UE. Nico Muling Tapang, I like how he plays too. I think he's eventually going to be a good UAP player. And Welo Lingo Lingo, I like the way he plays too. Now, with all that said, I have UE going under 6 games. I think UE wins 1 game this season.
Wow.
And I know it sounds a little brutal, but again, I just
Yeah.
think that it's the first year of another rebuild. Let's not forget when Coach Jack had his 6-8 season with the program last year, that was his fourth season coaching the team. And still, they went only 6-8. And they've also lost talent. You don't anymore have Ethan Galang. You don't anymore have Devin Fikes. Maga, who was supposed to be one of their standouts, has left the team for UP. And the rest of the league has just gotten better. And I don't think there's a lot of room in the first year for rebuild for UE to make an impact right away. And because of that, I have UE at 1 win.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not far off, to be honest, on your 1 win prediction. My prediction is to initially, when I was doing my initial projections, I my expectation was 1 to 3 wins, and I decided to go with 2 wins for UE, and they haven't looked anything good this off season. It's been a pretty brutal off season on and off the court for UE, and I don't know, maybe if hopefully they give Chris Gavina time to build the system in UE. But I think this coming season, maybe they get a win or two just because of their 3-point shooting, 'di ba? They shoot so many 3-pointers, and maybe 1 or 2 games, they get hot. But it's gonna be very hard to see them consistently win. And it still surprises me, and it's still crazy to think for me that they were able to finish yung first round last year at 5-2, and with people saying that they could be a championship contender after defeating LaSalle.
What a time to be
That's how
alive.
that's how far of a fall from grace UE has had from the first round last season, and it's sakit. Ang sakit kasi they've also been losing players. The trend has continued even when Coach Jack has left the building, as they say. 'Di ba? They still lose players in the off season, players who could potentially become good rotational or star players for their team, and masakit for a UE fan, especially when they will see si Gani Stevens and maybe si Remogat have big seasons for a team like UP, because that could have been them. They should have been with them, but circumstances have changed. And it looks like, as you mentioned, another rebuilding season. I think that they are the they have the biggest chance to finish as the last place team this coming season. I don't know how they still haven't recovered, I think, from that meltdown ng first round, as we've seen sa team, and it's concerning. But yeah, si Jana Bate will definitely have a big season. He'll probably jack up the most shots in the UAP, and probably average close to 20 if those shots go in. I think he had a game this offseason where he scored 20 in the first half, yet they were still trailing.
Go get that money, John. Use the season to set yourself up for the future. You deserve it. And by the way, about Gavina, I agree with you that you need to give coaches time to build a culture and program, especially coaches who are taking over a program and culture that isn't used to winning.
Yeah.
And I am not 100% sure about this, Maui. But I think right now Gavina has only a 1 year deal, or maybe two, but not definitely not past two. So you need to give him more time. But let's see. Let's see how it goes also. Okay. Sorry, UE fans. You guys know how much I appreciate you all. I really do. I just think it's the start of another rebuild. And I know it's been
The
16 long
forever
years.
rebuild.
16-year Final Four drought. I just think you guys will have to wait a little longer, but hopefully there's some good signs, because I feel for many of you. Trust me when I say I feel for many of you. I saw all your messages and comments last season. Okay, FEU Tamaraws, they were 5-9 last season. Second year under coach Sean Chambers. We should note FEU started rather slow. I think they were 1-6 the first round last season, and then ended the second round with a winning record, actually, going 4-3. Then, of course, the big off-season where VJ Pre, or should we say VJ Pre's family, wanted him to leave the school. He's now with UP. But a lot of the other young pieces are still there. John Ray Pasaol, Jedrick Daa. They have Moncopa entering the team this year, and he's someone a lot of people have said a lot of good things about that I've heard. They recently recruited a one-and-done guard by the name of Neil Owens. He played Division 3 in the USA, but he shot 40% from downtown. And Coach Sean Chambers is motivated to have this guy on the team. He is a good point guard, steady. Of course, there's always the question of how quickly someone can adjust to the Philippine style of play, particularly because I think he only joined FU's practices last week. But if he keeps shooting well, if he keeps leading teams and creating opportunities for teammates to score, he could be the kind of playmaker FEU needs to stay consistent. They still have Joric Bautista as well. I think Joric should be even better this season than last season. And we haven't even talked about Mo Konate, who I felt it was Tongkara who was the best FSA last season, but I thought Konate was the second best FSA last season. And I feel like this season, Konate is going to be the best FSA in the UAAP. Now, given all that I said, I do think FEU is still a pretty young team. Their main core is still pretty young and needs more experiencing. I think they're a year away from being legit Final Four contenders. And I know Coach Sean Chambers is not going to be so happy because he has the mindset of we're going to surprise everyone. We're going to try to win every game. and that kind of mentality is the kind of culture you want to see at FEU. We should note as well that unlike last year, program director Denok Miranda is no longer there at FEU. And I think that means Coach Sean is now going to get the chance to establish the kind of culture he wants to, at least more than last season. With all that said, I have FEU winning 4 games, going under from their 5-win total last season. And then next year, season 89, we're going to start looking at them as Final Four contenders.
Uh, we have them at the same. I think yung projection ko is 3 to 5, and I have them at 4. If VJ Pre was here, I'd probably have them at 8. 8 to
Wow.
9. 8 to 9 wins for next season. And I think yung proof is the second round of last season. They were really up and coming. They all they needed was probably some additional help from their bench, and I think they've gotten a bit deeper despite losing VJ Pre. But it's pretty hard. How can you replace somebody who is your now and your future? How can you play? I think yung hole ng FEU sa 4 slot is gonna be a big issue, and that's the reason why despite a year of experience from this young core, I think that their best case scenario is to potentially push, or in my case, win 4 games for this season. If VJ Pre was here, easily, I would say 7, 8 games they could win. Just riding off the momentum also from the second round. Yeah, this team needed some time to mesh up and to really adjust to the UAAP, di ba? Not just the players, but also si Coach Sean. It's certainly still different when you're playing the UAAP season, not some preseason tournaments or not some tune-up games. The pressure is different, the stakes are higher, and it's much like UE fans, I'm a bit disappointed and sad for FEU fans, just because I think they expected this season could potentially be a good season for them, but they probably have to wait a year or two, just because of that departure by VJ. But nevertheless, I think I've been saying this maybe for the past 3 or 4 off seasons. Making the final four for FU really boils down to to one thing. Not starting out the season badly. If there's something that FU has been notoriously good at the past few seasons, it's been starting the season badly. They've had 0-4, 0-5 starts, and if you want to make the final four, certainly you cannot go that route. It's pretty unusual what we saw from UE last year, where you have a very good first round and have a an as an abysmal second round. The usual trend is you have a good first round and you bring that momentum to the second round and potentially upset in the final four. I think that if you will probably lack some firepower, and much like John Abate, I think si Joric Bautista could potentially average 20 also by racking up so many shots this coming season. Unless if si John Ray Pasaol and maybe si Liam Salangsang will take some of the scoring pressures. Si Moon Copa has been impressive in short stints, but I don't know if he's gonna be ready to be consistently good this coming season. So maybe Joric and Abate will give us a scoring title to talk about.
Maybe one of them can crash into that mythical 5. Add that to the resume, make it nice. Yeah, with FEU, they're gonna be that team that everyone's gonna root for, I feel, because they lost VJ in the offseason and they're a young team on the rise. Their coach is, personable. Their coach is a bit of a personality and he interacts online. He's active, he's energetic. I think that's gonna draw a lot of people in. But they're gonna have a lot of moral losses. It feels like those losses where they were close, they fought hard, and then the other team just ends up pulling at the end. But next season, I'm excited for FEU. Okay, the NU Bulldogs. Last season, NU finished at 5-9, but ironically, they were the only team to beat both UP and DLSU. And they did it without an FSA. Modi Asana, who was playing for the first time as a Bulldog, he had previously only played in off-season tournaments, tears his ACL 5 minutes into his first ever UAP game, and it was so devastating because he worked so hard and waited so long to have his shot. This season, Mo and his knee have not recovered in time for him to be lined up against. So the Bulldogs, I believe, are going with Omar John. Omar John is no stranger to UAP basketball. He's played for the UAP before. The last time he played with the Bulldogs was season 86 when NU finished as the third seed and lost to LaSalle in the Final Four. NU has two graduating wing players who are impressive, Manansala and Figueroa. They still have Steve Nash Enriquez at the point guard position and two up-and-coming point guards in Umamoy and Tebol Garcia to also provide backup in that regard. They have two post-up, back-to-the-basket old school guys in Palacielo and Padrones who get them points in the paint. They still don't quite have that knockdown outside shooting yet. That has been an Achilles heel the last few years. But we know under Coach Jeff, they will be well coached. They will be defensive oriented. They are probably the most score by committee team in the UAAP, if we're being honest. With all that said, I do have them going over their win total last season of 5. This year, I think they win 7 games. They go 7-7. And I don't think it's enough to make the Final Four. You.
Uh, I'm setting up my Final Four race to be pretty crazy. And much like you, my projection is for NU for NU to go over. And at 7 wins again. The third team to get 7 wins in my off-season projection. I think NU could potentially surprise us. They're playing with two timelines with some of the young guns. I think pretty big hit losing si Miguel Palanca because I thought that he could be a good fit to their timeline, playing two different timelines. I think si Figueroa and Manansala will be tasked to carry them again this season. I think a huge part of their success will depend on the consistency of Omar John. Can he consistently be a good rim protector, rebound the ball, and stay off foul trouble? I think the thing that you should look at sa NU is who will be the key guy when it comes to point guards. They still have the three-headed point guard issue right now. I think this is Steve Nash still has the inside track, but let's see. Let's see where that goes. I think si Palacielo is primed for a big season also. But I don't think they're at the same level as maybe a LaSalle or a UP at this point in time. I think that's the sad reality of them. Despite the last playing seasons, I think of Figueroa and Manansala. I think they lost a lot of their ceiling when Diazana tore his ACL 5 minutes into last season. And them winning 5 games last season was crazy without an FSA. I think they could have been so good with Diazana last year, and sayang for them. But I think the UAAP has also upgraded, 'di ba? This from the previous season to now, I think the playing field is more even. And despite getting an FSA and maybe a healthier lineup, I think NU will only manage to improve by a maximum of maybe 3 games. And my projection is 2 games at 7-7.
Bulldogs, admirable team. I said this in one of the recent podcast episodes. We're just waiting for the program to win the big games. We've seen you guys make the Final Four. We've talked about you guys as a dark horse, as an under the radar, don't sleep on them team. But we can only talk about NU that long before we ask the question, can you guys win the big games? Asia Basket lost in the semis to LaSalle. Phil Oil lost in the finals to UP. And not only lost, they looked like they were not ready to be in the finals against UP. And that was very surprising for a team coached by Jeff Napa. I thought his boys let him down in that game. I thought the coaching staff did a good job coaching the team all throughout the Phil Oil tournament. And then when they got to the finals after that big win against UST, the boys were not ready to match UP's intensity. So again, NU, prove to us you're ready to win those big games. Last but not the least, the easiest over-under for me, the Ateneo Blue Eagles. Kakanta ka na ba?
Will I go first?
Win or lose, it's the school we choose. No, look, Maui, okay, just spoiler alert. I have Ateneo winning 9 games this season. I think they're the 3rd seed. They go way over their 4-win total last season. This team to me, more than UST and NU, is, if you ask me the question, if one of LaSalle or UP does not make the finals, or one of them is eliminated by a team under them, which team from that bracket, the non-LaSalle UP bracket, is most likely to do it? Maybe it's history, maybe it's because of what we saw in the offseason, but my first instinct is to go with Ateneo. They have a coach who's been here a decade, a coach who has won at the highest level of college basketball, a coach that knows how to whip his team into shape, a coach that knows how to turn a bunch of underdogs into legitimate contenders. And just to give you more info, Maui, I had a call last week with someone I really trust from LaSalle, who's close to the team and sees what's happening daily in the UAP. And he told me these words, Naveen, this season, it's LaSalle, it's UP, and it's Ateneo. He went as far as to tell me, you can add Ateneo to that list now. Because in my mindset, I was like, maybe we add Ateneo later. To him, it's like, no, you can add them now. They're that good. And then I was talking to an Ateneo player recently. He told me, bro, Dom, meaning Dominic Escobar, their one and done recruit, really good. Other coaches from other teams say the same. Players from other teams say the same. Dominic Escobar is going to be good, especially if he can lose a little more of the size and get leaner so he can match the fast-paced game in the Philippines. And we just know that Kimani Ladi is like one of those guys who's going to have that one-and-done dominant seasons where he might be a mythical 5 guy. Divine Adili, now listen to me, he has fouling issues, especially when he's guarding a big like Mike Phillips. He tends to foul a little too much. But the last few months, I'm sure Coach Tab and that coaching staff has trained him to be a little more disciplined. If he can stay on the court, they're really good. The 2 games played in Ateneo, LaSalle versus Ateneo, Asia Basket, Ateneo gave LaSalle a fight. The first game, LaSalle rallied from 8 down in the 4th quarter. The second game, LaSalle went up 15, I think, early, and Ateneo was able to cut that lead down to 1. Sean Tuano is solid. Kyle Gamber is not sure how many minutes he'll get, but he's starting to be more consistent from outside. You have a good point guard combo of Bahay and Espinosa, who showed signs of improvement. I'm pretty high on Ateneo, maybe a little too optimistic. So I'm trying to caution myself as well. But there's just so much to like about what this team has going on right now. And Maui, you will know this. To me, the most impressive Ateneo team of the Tab Dynasty was actually the team that did not win the championship in 2016. I'll tell you why. Before that season, you guys lost so many players. Hubert Cani, Pingoy,
7, I
Carino.
think.
7, yeah. Tolentino, CJ Perez. I think I'm missing 2 more. But Perez and Tolentino alone are stars now, right? And the other guys in that list were really good too. And that Ateneo team started slow. Diba? They lost to UP for the first time in years that season, the Jello Vito game winner. And then they ended up being the only team to beat the Benembala Geronteng Mayhem DLSU Green Archers that season. They lost to LaSalle in the finals, but those 2 games were tighter and more competitive than people remember. In fact, a Matt Nieto shot in game 1 had me thinking, holy shit, Ateneo might actually win this championship, and this would be the greatest upset in UAP history. It came that close until Geronteng saved the day. This team, I think, has the potential to kind of be like that team, where maybe they're not super wow right away, but they keep getting better as the season goes on, and there's just a chance, a good chance, they might crash in that finals matchup.
Yeah, actually, very good point on that Ateneo, the first iteration of Coach Tab being the one of the most impressive teams. I would say yung first two seasons si Coach Tab were pretty impressive just because of how crazy good Ben Embala was for Lasal. And props to you for remembering yung game one because it gave 2002 vibes for me.
Wow, yep.
When Matt Nieto hit that go-ahead bucket, I thought that maybe Ateneo could upset in the finals. Could upset Lasal in the finals. But Jeronteng had that different goals for that
Ah,
season. He didn't want to
quick
exit
quick
without
story.
winning.
I remember Jeron shouted at his teammates when Ateneo took the lead. Puta na, bigay nyo sa akin yung bola! And they did. And then we
And
know
they
what
won the
happened.
game. And they won that game. And yeah, maybe I'm not as optimistic as you with this team just because we haven't seen them play a lot of official games. But based on my inside track, based on the whispers I hear from on my ear, they've done pretty good in closed door games. Also against UAP teams. I think that's very important. Kasi
Yes,
'di ba if you look at the
they
pre
beat UST by 1 point a few weekends ago.
and if you talk about Ateneo's performance against UAP teams during the previous off season, they were winless, diba? So it's gonna be great. It would be ludicrous to say that they wouldn't improve. I think from the 4-10 from last season. I thought that that Ateneo team could have been a fourth seed last year at 6 wins. They threw so many games. I could probably count 3 to 4 games easily from last season that they could have won, and that could have catapulted them to the final four. You could say that Ateneo was the cellar dweller from last season, but that wasn't the case if you were watching the season. They had their chances, but they weren't able to capitalize on them. And I think the main one of the main reasons that they weren't was because they were parading rookies and sophomores, 'di ba,
They didn't
from
have an
last
FSA.
season. They technically they did have an FSA, but they did not have an FSA. They were starting Porter, who was measured, I think, at 6'3" sa practice against players who were 6'8" and above, di ba? And
Yep.
I just think that Ateneo has so much more talent this coming season. I think that they've answered the questions that need to be answered. I think their biggest question last season was their front court. Di ba, I mentioned si Porter having to go play center, starting center at 6'3". A rookie, nonetheless. Josh Lazaro needing to play the 5 slot. Chris Kuhn needing to play the 4 slot. I think with the addition of Ladi, with the addition of Escobar, and the addition of Adili, and some of the other guys getting a lot better. Even the guys from Davao could potentially get some minutes. Sila Phil Biang if Coach Tab doesn't want si Ong to get more minutes. But I just think that with all of the developments this off season, and I think it's no coincidence that Ateneo set it up like this, that they are very secretive and very I would say this is the same strategy that they employed during that first iteration of Tab. Kaya maybe people are comparing it to that. But despite this, without seeing them in official games against UAP teams, I would still peg them a bit lower than LaSalle and maybe UP. And on maybe closer to UST, Adamson and NU. My initial projection was 7 to 9 wins for Ateneo. If they can get at 8 wins, I would consider the season a bit of a success coming from where we were a season ago. So my final prediction is maybe 8 games for
Yeah.
Ateneo next year. And who knows? Maybe they do upset and they do get to the finals this season. I think the biggest thing that Ateneo fans can look forward to is may hope na finally. We've been saying this on our podcast. Yung team last season was really just hopeless nung off season. So many things. transpired on and off the court. So many talent lost early going pro. And this offseason is more predictable when it comes to the coaching staff, how to manage this team. Last offseason was so challenging to the point that si Amos, di ba, transferred very late and they were fully expecting him to play. And the FSA of the previous season, si God's Love, also transferred out pretty late. So I think with the with the predictability of the lineup that Ateneo has, I think Coach Tab can be more consistent. The team can be more consistent under Coach Tab this season.
The underlying theme for me also is because you've heard the whispers, I'm sure I've heard it too. A lot of people assume this might be Coach Tab's last season. His contract expires after this year. If it happens to be the case, wouldn't Coach Tab want to go out with a bang? Wouldn't someone as accomplished and obsessed with winning want to end what's been a successful UAAP career or era or Ateneo era? Because who knows, maybe he ends up in the UAP anyway if he does leave. If he does leave, because that's not confirmed yet. But if that's the case, wouldn't he want to go out on top? Wouldn't he want to go out with a good final memory? Don't underscore the human and emotional side of things because that's a factor. Okay, so to recap, 56 total wins. The math turned out correct for both of us. I have DLSU at 11, UP at 11, Ateneo at 9, UST at 8. That's my final 4. NU at 7, Adamson at 5, FU at 4, and UE at 1. Maui has DLSU at 11, UP at 10, Ateneo at 8, NU, UST, Adamson at 7. So that would be like a step ladder for the 4 seed.
Mayhem. We
Mayhem.
want mayhem.
And then FEU at 4 and UE at 2. Okay, so I am coming up with the UAP Season 88 preview series, so I'm not going to give my final prediction yet. I'll keep that for when we're closer to the season. But because this is the episode where we have Maui on, Maui, why don't you give us your final 4 winners and who wins the championship this season? So you have DLSU versus the winner of NU UST Adamson and UP versus Ateneo in the final 4.
Yeah, I think my final 4 will potentially be LaSalle, UP, Ateneo, and if I were to choose from NU, Adamson, and USC, I'd pick NU as that fourth team. And to be honest, it's gonna be LaSalle and UP. I think yung finals for the third straight season. Unless if Ateneo or maybe a team like NU or UST. I think those three teams, and maybe UST and Ateneo. Kasi NU still hasn't proven to us, as you mentioned, can win in big games. So maybe Ateneo and UST could if there were a team that I would pick that would upset to get to the finals, maybe one of those teams. But I think it's still gonna be LaSalle UP. And I think UP's not gonna repeat. I think LaSalle's gonna win the championship if it boils down to getting to the finals. I think that if I were to pick a finals MVP, I'd pick probably si Jacob Cortez to become the finals MVP for next season if LaSalle wins the championship. I think he would want to get that after not get. I'm not sure. Did he win the finals MVP in the NCAA? I think he lost.
No, Payosing won it.
Si Payosing ang nakakuha. So I think he would want to get that under his resume. But let's see. I think very unpredictable ang UAP season this coming season. I think the gap from UP and LaSalle is really a lot closer than it was the previous season. I think teams like Ateneo and UST could surprise us. Maybe some team much like UE last year goes on a rampant win streak in the first round and destroys any prediction that we've made today. Diba? I hope we see that. That's something I hope to see in the UAP. I want mayhem. I want parity. I want craziness. And let's get the show running finally.
I'm not saying this is gonna happen, but think of this hypothetical situation. Remember, guys, hypothetical. 23 years after Ateneo in 2002 beat LaSalle and the way that series ended for Mike Cortez. What if LaSalle and Ateneo face in the finals again and Jacob Cortez wins Finals MVP. Wouldn't that be such an interesting turn of fate after everything that happened and transpired all those
The
years
circle
ago?
of life.
The circle of life, exactly. But of course, easier said than done. UP is not going to give their championship up without a fight. Maui up, thank you so much. You guys are doing such a great job with the Boleros podcast. I'm sure you guys are going to have some great episodes this season. And I'm sure the UAP community loves all of you guys. Appreciate your time, bro. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, bro.